Donald Trump's chances of winning the 2024 presidential election have skyrocketed to a commanding 58 a day, a dramatic leap compared to just a few weeks ago. This sharp increase in his odds is especially significant when you consider that Kamala Harris was actually leading the race only 3 weeks ago. But now with Trump surging ahead and maintaining a strong edge, it's time to dive into the factors driving this monumental shift in the election landscape. How did we get here? What's propelling Trump's growing momentum? And how is Harris's campaign struggling to keep up? The speed at which the dynamics have changed is striking, especially since Harris was considered the frontrunner not too long ago. But the reality is clear as clack. Position is strengthened, and it seems like the momentum is swinging heavily in his favor as we approach the final weeks before the election. One of those fascinating aspects of this development is how much movement we've seen in the battleground states. These states are where the true contest for the presidency is unfolding, and they're the ones that will ultimately decide who wins the White House. While some states are essentially locked in for one candidate or the other, Trump isn't going to win deep blue Democratic strongholds like New Hampshire or Maine. Just like Harris isn't likely to flip traditionally Republican states like Iowa or Ohio, the real battle is taking place in the competitive battleground states. These are the 11 critical states where the polls and betting odds have shown the most volatility over the past few weeks, and they will determine the outcome of the election. Let's start by looking at one of the most dramatic examples of Trump's surge, Michigan. Just 3 weeks ago, Trump's odds of winning Michigan were sitting at a mere 33, but now he soared to a 54 chance of winning the state. This shift is a clear sign that Trump's campaign is gaining serious traction, and Michigan is one of the key states where that momentum is becoming increasingly apparent. But Michigan isn't the only state where Trump is making gains. Similar trends are playing out across several battlegrounds. Nevada, for example, has become one of the closest races in the country, with both Trump and Harris sitting at a 5th chance of winning the state. For most of the last 2 months, Harris had been leading in Nevada, but Trump has managed to close the gap in recent days. And now the state is a true toss-up. What's interesting here is that Trump has even pulled ahead in the polling average, holding a slim 0.5 lead. While that margin might seem small in a state as competitive as Nevada, it's a significant edge. And when you look at individual polls, the latest Wall Street Journal survey shows Trump leading by 6 points over Harris. A sizable lead, especially considering that the Wall Street Journal tends to have a left-leaning slant in its polling. This is a remarkable development because Nevada hasn't voted for a Republican in a presidential election since 2004. If Trump manages to flip the state, it would be a major victory for his campaign, marking the first time a GOP candidate has won Nevada in 20 years. Based on the current trends in polling and betting markets, it looks like Nevada may lean slightly toward Trump as election day approaches, making it one of the most crucial states to watch. But before we get into the details, hit the subscribe button, like this video, and leave your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for your support. Another battleground state where Trump is in a strong position is Arizona. Right now, Trump holds a 68 chance of winning Arizona, which is a notable lead given that he didn't win the state in the 2020 election. In fact, Biden narrowly flipped Arizona in 2020, winning by just 0.31. But now Trump's current advantage in the state is significant. It's interesting to note that Trump's odds of winning Arizona today are just as strong as they were back in mid-July, even before Biden exited the race. Despite Harris stepping in as the Democratic nominee, her campaign hasn't gained much traction in Arizona, and she's performing worse than Biden did before he dropped out. This is a major challenge for the Harris campaign. The polling averages currently show Trump leading by 1.1 in Arizona, and the most recent poll from the New York Times shows him up by 5 points. Trump has consistently polled well in Arizona, only briefly slipping behind during the Democratic convention when Harris enjoyed a temporary bounce. Now, though Trump's position has solidified and Arizona is leaning Republican according to both the polling data and betting markets, Texas is another state where Trump has a firm grip on the race. With a 9-1 chance of winning, Texas is practically guaranteed to stay in Trump's column. While there is a competitive Senate race happening in Texas with Ted Cruz facing re-election, Trump's dominance on the presidential level is clear. Even though Cruz is not particularly popular in Texas, Trump's position remains strong. Back in 2020, the polls underestimated Trump's strength in Texas, predicting a tight race with only a 1 margin, but he ended up winning by nearly 6 times that margin. Right now, Trump's lead in Texas stands at nearly 6 points, and he could very well increase that margin as we get closer to Election Day. Harris has tried to make Texas competitive but there's simply no evidence to suggest that she's making any headway. Texas is solidly in Trump's column, and there's little chance of that changing. Shifting focus to the Midwest, we see even more troubling signs for Harris. The Midwest is critical to her path to victory, especially states like Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. Harris has to win all 4 of these states to have a realistic shot at the presidency. Losing any one of them would put her at a significant disadvantage. And right now, she's facing major challenges in several of these key states. In Minnesota, Harris made a calculated choice by selecting Tim Walz, the state's governor, as her running mate. While this might help her secure a victory in Minnesota, it's worth noting that no Democrat has lost the state since 1972. In other words, Minnesota was never really in play for Trump. So Harris's decision to pick Walz doesn't give her much of an advantage in the battleground states. She actually needs to win. If Harris had chosen someone like Josh Shapiro, the governor of Pennsylvania, she might have improved her chances in the Keystone State, a far more crucial battleground than Minnesota. As it stands, Harris has a 91% chance of winning Minnesota, but this won't be enough to give her the edge she needs in other Midwestern states like Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, where the real contest is happening. In Wisconsin, the situation looks even worse for Harris. A few weeks ago, she had a solid 60% chance of winning the state, but that lead has evaporated. Now, her odds have fallen to just 47, with Trump taking the lead for the first time in months. Throughout August and September, Harris had been the clear favorite in Wisconsin, but with Election Day fast approaching, Trump is gaining momentum at the perfect time. Harris technically still holds a slight lead in the polling averages, but Wisconsin's polling history has a notorious reputation for overestimating Democratic support. In 2016, for instance, Hillary Clinton was predicted to win Wisconsin by 6 points, only to lose the state altogether. And in 2020, Biden was supposed to win by 6.3, but he barely eked out a 0.6 average victory. So even though Harris might appear to have a slight polling advantage, it's difficult to trust those numbers. The betting markets have already shifted in Trump's favor, and Wisconsin is now leaning toward the Republicans. Michigan tells a similar story of Democratic decline. Harris's odds of winning Michigan were once as high as 70, but now they've plummeted to 46. Trump recently took the lead in the state for the first time in 2 months, and he's now favored to win Michigan, one of the more traditionally liberal swing states. In 2020, Biden won Michigan by nearly 3 points, making it the most left-leaning battleground state. But today, Trump leads by 1 in the polling average, and just like in Wisconsin, polling in Michigan has consistently underestimated Trump's support. In 2016, Clinton was expected to win Michigan by 11.4, but she lost the state entirely. Although Biden managed to win it in 2020, he still underperformed relative to the polls. Now, with Trump leading in both the polls and betting markets, Michigan is trending red. And if Trump secures this state, Harris's chances of winning the election drop significantly. The situation in Pennsylvania is perhaps the most critical for both candidates. Pennsylvania is shaping up to be the most important state in the entire election, and Trump's current advantage here could make all the difference. Trump currently has a 56% chance of winning the state, and he's been leading in the polls for several weeks now. While his lead in Pennsylvania is narrow, just 0.3, the overall trend is clear. Trump has consistently held a lead in nearly every poll over the past 3 weeks. Pennsylvania was always going to be a battleground state, even when Biden was still in the race. But now with Trump ahead, it's looking more and more like he will secure a victory here. Pennsylvania is leaning red on the election map, and if Trump manages to win it, Harris's path to the presidency becomes exceedingly difficult. Moving to the Southeast, Virginia is another state where Harris is expected to win, though her margin of victory may not be as wide as some might expect. Virginia hasn't gone Republican since George W. Bush, and while Harris is likely to carry the state, it's trending more conservative. Harris currently has a 91% chance of winning Virginia, but the polls show her leading by less than 7 points, a far narrower margin than Biden's double-digit win in 2020. Although Virginia will probably stay blue, the fact that the race is tightening is another indicator of Trump's growing momentum across the country. Looking further south, North Carolina is yet another battleground where Harris is in trouble. She's now trailing Trump by 3 points in the polling averages, and her chances of winning the state have fallen to just 34. Trump won North Carolina in 2016 and 2020, and it's looking like he's on track to do it again in 2024. North Carolina is currently tilting red, and Harris will need a major swing in momentum to have any hope of flipping the state. Georgia is another crucial state that Biden flipped in 2020, but Trump is now in the driver's seat. Trump currently has a 64% chance of winning Georgia, and he's leading by 0.7 in the polling averages. Georgia has always been a battleground, but Trump's steady rise in the polls suggest that the state is leaning red once again. If Trump manages to reclaim Georgia, it would be another major blow to Harris's campaign. Finally, we come to Florida, a state that has long been considered a Republican stronghold. Harris's chances of winning Florida are slim to none. Trump has a 90 chance of victory here. The polling averages show Trump leading by a commanding 6.1, and he's likely to win by an even larger margin. Florida has been trending Republican for years, and despite Democratic hopes, it's clear that the state is firmly in Trump's column for 2024. When we zoom out and look at the entire map, it's becoming increasingly evident that Trump is on track to win the majority of the key battleground states. Based on the current numbers, Trump is projected to win 332 electoral votes to Harris's 226, putting him in an incredibly strong position to claim victory in the 2024 election. His momentum is building rapidly, and unless there's a major shakeup in the coming weeks, it seems like Donald Trump is poised for a significant win on election day. So that's the current state of the race. Trump is firmly in control, and Harris is struggling to keep pace. Keep tuning in for more updates as we inch closer to November. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for the latest political news and analysis.